Welcome back. This is Daybreak and thank you for staying with us. We begin with a look at the front pages of the publications. The Standard says Ruto maintains tough conditions ahead of talks. The head of state yesterday said, "I heard our brothers," he meant the opposition, "agree with us that they, just like us, want to talk and they are opposed to a handshake. Now that they have declared so, they should go ahead and agree on ending the violence we shall agree on everything else." He was speaking in the county of Nyeri yesterday. The front page of the Daily Nation also has a similar story. Ruto Raila rule out power sharing ahead of the crucial talks. The head of state yesterday sustained the onslaught on the opposition, declaring his government will speedily conclude negotiations with rivals so long as power sharing is not on the table. The National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, who will be the leader of the team, insisted that the talks are open and will be happening at the Bomas of Kenya tomorrow on Wednesday. Last lawmaker Adan Kainan is with us in the studio. Kadhiani lawmaker Robert Mbuya, as well as Tabitha Mutinda, who is a nominated senator, and Peter Opondo Kaluma, who is the Homa Bay Town Member of Parliament, are with us in the studio. We welcome your contributions as well. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Coming to you first, Honorable Mutinda, there seems to be a partial convergence on where the talks will happen and when they will happen and what time they will happen. But there seems to be no convergence when it comes to the agendas for the talks between the government and the opposition. Why do you think there exists that clear dichotomy between the agendas for the talk, despite the parties agreeing on the talks themselves?
Let me start by saying thank you for having us this great morning. And yeah, it's a clear concern in terms of what we are seeing from both sides, whereby there's pushing back. But remember, it is us as Kenya Kwanza who have welcomed these second talks. We started with the bipartisan talks. We called our brothers on table to be able to have discussions. But what happened, we realized that they are so personalized. It's personal benefits that were to be discussed, and those talks got to a halt. Again, we've given them a second chance. We said, our brothers, for the sake of this country, come on table, let us sit down and talk. And because they've been talking about the common mwananchi, we say, let the common mwananchi listen. Let us give them timing so that they can be able to set also their timings, they resonate with our timings, and we be able to discuss on the same page, on the same space, so that now it is clear in terms of what the opposition wants. The role that we expected the opposition to do, which was accountability, they failed to do. And what they're bringing on table, which is very clear, the first agenda is what benefits them, because the element of the common wananchi is not really being pronounced. Okay. What is being pronounced is what is their share, what are they going to take, what is their take home. And that's why we say, let us open this discussion. Remember, bipartisan was a bit in the boardroom, discussions. But now we are saying we are so open, because remember, why are we open? We are open simply because we talked to our people during our campaign times. We talked to them, we promised them. And so even at these particular talks, we want still to open it up to our people and say, listen, this is what our brothers are saying. We'll be able to do or will not be able to do. It's as simple as that. That's why we are totally open to the people. All
right, we will talk about the details of what the opposition had listed. Coming to you, Honorable Mbuya, then, I mean, when on Wednesday, tomorrow, by the grace of God, these talks will resume and to be spearheaded by Kimani Ichung'wah and Senior Counsel Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, what's the end goal?
Yeah, thank you, Ayub. Ayub, I think the end goal is for us to get to sit together and agree on the agendas that both sides have presented on the table. And I want to first say that it's unfortunate. I've listened to the Senator, Mutinda, and she's just propagated very cheap propaganda here, and said that even in the first time that we had talks that there were personal issues that were placed on the table. The agenda of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya has been consistent and has also been publicized. I mean, I would like to understand which one of the agendas that we bring on the table is personal, because we have brought cost of living, which is not about us. It's not personal to us. It's personal to the people that we represent. We've talked about IEBC reconstitution, which even they themselves have proposed as an agenda. We've talked about putting to rest the issue of the last general election by discussing what is the contents of the server. We've talked about, basically inclusivity, which is one of the values and principles of good governance in Article 10 of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. So every time I listen to Kenya Kwanza leaders speak, I keep wondering, what script are they reading from? It's unfortunate that you present an agenda to them and they come up with another agenda and keep talking about it. We have no interest. We have no personal interest. Our interests are the people that we represent, and we want them to listen to us so that we can sit together and agree. Because right now, Ayub, as we speak, Kenyans are suffering, and they're the ones holding the reins of power. We have a responsibility as a responsible opposition to make sure that we don't let the country go to the dogs. So we have to keep telling them, this is what is going wrong, and you have to find a way to correct it. And that's what we are doing. So at the end of the day, what we want is that we want a discussion that will lead to ensuring that Kenyans are able to put food on the table, and Kenyans' standards of living are improved, and Kenyans don't continue to suffer. That's basically what we want.
Okay, when we talk about the cost of living, the IEBC reconstitution, the last general election, and audit of the same, inclusivity, most of these issues are addressed by the framework of our constitution. For example, there was an initiated process in regards to the IEBC reconstitution. The cost of living, what then, as the opposition, have you presented as an alternative to address the high cost of living in the country?
Very simple, Ayub. We've just told them this, that we do understand that the economy is doing badly, not just in Kenya, even internationally. But it's unfortunate that when people are hurting, and I've said this before, when I was in the university, I used to be a boxer. Maybe Kaluma, you don't know. I was actually the captain of boxing team of Kenyatta University for 2 years when I was in second year and third year. Now, if you're in a boxing ring and you punch someone and they fall, you don't kick them when they're on the ground. Kenyans are hurting. Kenyans are doing very badly. The economy is doing very badly. And at this time, this regime introduces a tax regime that does two things. One, it reduces disposable income, the money that people have to spend. Because if you take away, if you increase, pay as you earn, that means you reduce the amount of money people earn. If you introduce a levy for housing, again, that reduces the disposable income. And look at NSSF and NHIF is also going up. So people have less money. At the same time, you also increase the cost of basic, goods and services by increasing the cost of fuel. So for us, what we are saying is that get rid of those new punitive taxes that you've introduced in this finance bill that were forced down the throat of members of parliament and on Kenyans. That's why it's still in court. And the goodwill would be that because Kenyans have always paid taxes, we don't mind continuing to pay taxes. But why do you introduce more taxes at a time when people are already down? We've already punched Kenyans. They're already on the ground. Why kick them when they're down there? Okay. So we are saying remove those extra taxes so that we do not hurt Kenyans more. That's basically our bottom line.
And Kenyans have been kicked on the head for the past nearly 60 years by policymakers who have been at the realms of power because they pay their fair share of taxes, but their taxes are misused and often siphoned from state coffers. And you, members of the bicameral parliament and those in positions of power, is the reason as to why we are here. And we'll talk more about the cost of corruption and why we need to deepen our democratic credentials as a country. Honorable Adan Kenan, coming to you. Evidently, there seems to be friction even before the starting of the talks as to what the agenda and the scope of that meeting will be. A confirmation of the venue, a confirmation of the timing and the team that will meet. But that is a secondary. It's not the primary. The primary is what will make the agenda of the talks. Do you foresee an agreement on issues that affect Kenyans and will be wholesalely addressed by both parties?
Thank you. I think, first of all, it's good to understand the genesis of this discussion. This discussion actually has been mutating. Immediately after the general elections, there was a group actually who were agitating for regime change. And then the issue of cost of living came up, and then the issue of constitutional change, the issue of inclusivity, finally the debate on handshake. And in where we are right now, those are facts. It's not my creation, and I'm sure you are alive to this. Where we are right now, the president had said there's no handshake. That is within his domain. Raila has also said there's no handshake. So that discussion on handshake should end there. Two, both groups have been saying there's need to dialogue. That has been accepted. A team has been formed. Okay? Meaning there are issues that we can discuss. There are issues that they can discuss. That issue again should settle there. The next thing is let's allow the team led by Honorable Stephen Kalonzo, who is a well-seasoned, somebody I consider extremely reasonable, and Honorable Ichunga, who is also somebody extremely reasonable and well-informed, to midwife this, and ultimately, I'm sure they will agree on issues that will add value to the well-being of the people of Kenya. Having said this, I think it's time that we need to dissect our politics. First of all, we have a democracy, and we have a multi-party democracy, meaning at the end of every election, at the end of every time there's an election, people compete, there's a winner and loser. You must also allow an opportunity, allow and give a space to the winner, because when you are going to the taxpayers for their votes, you have an agenda, you have a manifesto. It may be wrong, it may be right, but as long as that resonates with the thinking and you are given the overwhelming majority of their votes, that is your manifesto. Ni kitabu chako, what I can say. So the problem with Kenya is at the end of every election, the winner and the loser argue on the implementation of the manifesto of the winning team. And I think that's where we have got our policy. And I've been around for quite some time. From 1992, we have seen it. There was a debate, presidency this, it led to 1997. There was the issue of cooperation, merger. 2002 again, the issue of Tosha. 2005, the issue of
Ndizi Chungwa.
Ndizi Chunga. Then 2007, that unfortunate incident of national crisis. Then 2013, ICC. 2017, no election. 2018, handshake. 2022, again now, debate and inclusivity. I think for the sake of this country, that's why actually we are stagnated. Let's allow the winner. Let the winner take charge of the affairs of what they have been mandated to do, and let the opposition play their loyal, responsible opposition role by holding the government to account. How do we go about it? This must be done within the framework of our constitution. And we are very generous, and reform is actually a constitution. But when we meander, because of other interests, because of other conflicted issues, then we'll cease to have a convergence point for national interest. But I think, let me say this. If you look at Article 1 of the current constitution, sovereignty belongs to the people, but it's delegated to the elected representative. But I'm glad that the shenanigans actually who have been demeaning the role of parliament have now taken leave. So meaning this issue now being there and being managed by people really who understand, I think it's my take that that's the issue of the discussion. And I've heard Honorable Raila also say that his team is coming to the discussion without any condition. So meaning they are going there, there are issues. Kenya Kwanza has listed issues.
Okay.
The other team has also listed issues. As to which one comes first and which one does not, which one will not be included as part of the discussion, is something that that group will be well prepared actually to discuss. But finally, let me say this. Look at this country. We have been politicking. Everything is politics. Look at the media. There's nothing on innovation. It's either corruption or politics. Since 1991. I'm sure 1991, you are not in this world. This has been the politics. This has been the headline. At the expense of development, at the expense of economic growth, at the expense of everything else. This country, which once upon a time was the hub of everything, is now a struggling nation, simply because of the bad politics. The issue of cost of living actually is subjudice. I do not want to delve in it because the issue is in court. But equally, the person who has been elected has an agenda based on the manifesto. Let's also give them time. My take is this. I haven't been around. My take is this. And I've listened. Take, for example, this entity called NSF. There's a law that we passed in 2012. I don't know whether you were in Parliament, 2012, on reforms of NSF. That law was not operationalized until 4 or 5 months ago. How many years? 11 years.
Okay.
What happened? What was holding it? Simply because of the vested interest. Right now, I'm told that law has been implemented. NSF, which was collecting about $1 billion 1 year ago, is now collecting almost over 6.5 billion. NHIF is almost on a receivership. If the same is done for NSSF, for NHIF, for Lab Fund, for Lab Trust, for the housing levy, for the fuel levy, for the railway levy, this country is going to take the road that led to the mega development of Singapore. And I'm sure that is what the competitors of President William Ruto are actually afraid of. Give him space, and I'm sure you'll be surprised with the results.
And Lee Kuan Yew killed corruption, and he was very categorical about his path to ending corruption in Kenya. And we'll talk about that. You also mentioned a reformist constitution. Why, again, in your list, it appears you want to create the official opposition leader's office. We'll talk in detail about that. Honorable Peter Kaluma, coming to you. You had irreducible minimums as the opposition, NASA, that is the Opposition National Super Alliance, in 2017 in the aftermath of the elections. Again here, we're facing similar crisis in the aftermath of the elections, but again on a different scale and degree. What then do you think will be the end goal and the achievement these talks will have, or the bearing it will have on the development of this country?
Yes, I'm just coming from burying about 5 young people, very young people who are pulled out of their houses in Kisumu, in Nyalenda Estate, in the night by police and shot either in the head or in the heart. My view, number one, is that we must think about how to deal with the stagnated police reforms. And you've seen, my brother, situations where, despite our constitution saying the police is independent under the command of the Inspector General, the police shall be non-partisan, the police shall not further the political interest of any political formation or prejudice the other. You've seen people who should not be anywhere dictating the police, like the cabinet secretary saying, you know, wameingia Kwanza. Where are they? People must be shot. You've seen the casual manner in which, you know, President Ruto has been talking about the killing of Kenyans in broad daylight, you know, by a gang formed in the police service called Operation Support, you know, something. And I'm saying a gang because if you saw what happened in Kisumu, even the machinery they're using are not things you can use on citizens, particularly in the night, pulling them out. So I would like to, us to, you know, focus on the stagnated police reforms. How come we have a constitution talking about independent office, and yet these people still think the police, in terms of its command, still think they are under the president? I want us to talk about the issue of inclusivity in addition to what we was talking about. And let me tell you, my brother, I don't know where they get the idea that we are talking about an handshake. I think it's a very narrow understanding of what a nation is. Kenya, number one, is not a nation state. It is a state with over 40 sub-nations. Yeah, so all these tribes are nations within the meaning of the law. The situation we have had is that when you want to have what is called a nation, the biggest ideal usually is that you equally contribute to the resources of the nation and you equally share in them. And this is not to say people should go into, you know, handshake, the resources of the state and you share in them. And that is why everybody, you know, pays taxes. What have we been seeing in terms of how the resources are shared out across the country? What have we been seeing how, you know, public appointments are being shared across the country? And these are not things we can wait for to fester. Look, when you have a cabinet of 22 cabinet secretaries, and the Constitution says there will be ethnic and regional balance, is it possible that an ethnic community can occupy more than one of those cabinet positions? When you then have principal secretaries and there are communities which lack any, can you really have a situation where within a community you have PS in that village, PS in the next village, PS in the next village, when others don't have them? Okay. We may be talking about things like employment of teachers. Tabitha, you remember last time, we are saying we are employing 35 teachers, but 35,000. But 10,000 is being shared between the office of the president and the deputy president, and so openly there. And it is going to their ethnic communities. Only 25 is being pretended to be shared around. What are we talking about? We are now going to enlist people into the armed forces. What is going to happen? How can we have a situation where we are 44, you know, sub-nations of a state called Kenya, and 2 or 3 are only using others to contribute resources, but not to enjoy them, to an extent where you have the deputy president saying this is for shareholders. And that is why you would see news like, you know, what we were watching as the precursor before. The president today is in Rift Valley. The president is today in Mount Kenya. What is this road being launched in Homa Bay town? And don't they pay taxes?
He was in the coastal Kenya about a week ago.
What did he launch? You know, and I'm telling you this from inside government, because, my brother, people think that we are in opposition, we are not in government. We are in the first arm of government called National Assembly, which budgets and oversees how resources upon budget are being implemented. I'm telling you, Kenya is in autopilot. We are in a situation where, at this very early point, our national, policy cannot be defined. Our international clout, I can tell you, is going. You saw the other day, my brother, there have been claims that, the drones being used by Russia to hit Ukraine are coming from Iran. But you see us hosting the president for Iran. You see us in Belarus. You see us now with Russian, donated fertilizer, which we are subsidizing around. What is our international policy?
I mean, Peter Kaluma,
yes.
Is the problem the foreign policy question, or the presence of the leadership of the countries? For example, President Raisi was here. He is the president of Iran. You mentioned the Belarusian president, Alexander Lukashenko. You mentioned the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, at the St. Petersburg, Africa-Russia Leadership Summit. Is the problem the leaders meeting, or a foreign policy problem that you're pointing to?
Is being rudderless on matters foreign policy. Let me tell you, my brother, I was in a meeting where we were talking about how Kenya is intervening in Sudan. But then I was stopped midway when I started talking about how we are intervening. And the Sudanese delegation said, no, don't mention Kenya next to Sudan. We are in a situation where we cannot mediate in Sudan. We have problems in DRC. We have problems across. Where is our international clout going? That is why I'm saying, as an opposition, we don't cease to be, Kenyans because we are in opposition. If there are issues to be spoken about, let us speak about them. We are in a situation where we are talking cost of living. But what's that you are running? You have quadrupled the university fees, not, giving clear ideals about where help is going to come from. We are saying, in as much as you are in charge of the reins of power, we cannot just sleep as if, we cease to be Kenyans.
Thank you.
Can we talk? And my request would be that we deal with real issues, and let us be a bit more serious, my sister, my brother. When you say the only thing you want to talk about is how to entrench CDF in the Constitution, and CDF is operating. When you say the only thing you see you want to talk about is Prime Cabinet Secretary, when you say in a presidential system constitution you want to establish office of the official opposition, what are you talking about?
We'll talk about the details.
You are making light an opportunity for the people of Kenya to talk and to move the nation together.
Honorable Kaluma, this is the commitment, because what I seek, and this is the tradition on this show, is the commitment from those in policy positions. You similarly had grievances in the aftermath of the last general election, that is in 2017, not 2022. And then months later, despite the uncertainty, it ended up with a shelving of the concerns that you had listed at the time, ended up with a swearing-in ceremony of your party leader, which is not entrenched in the Constitution. Then a handshake happened, and all the listed concerns and grievances evaporated. What then makes you think that this time round you will stick to some of these issues that are pointed towards or geared towards addressing the public problems? Because there seems to be deficiency in trust among the public when it comes to politicians in this country.
I don't know the matrix you're using when you are saying things evaporated after the last elections. I think if there has been a better time under the Ruto government, it was during handshake. Latif, look around at the infrastructure overall, and not discriminate, but across the country, from Nairobi to Nyanza to Northeastern to every part of the country. For the first time, we had something in the nature of ethnic and regional equity in distribution of resources. Corruption went down substantially. And then I can tell you, I'm happy you're saying we will be speaking about it. But we are losing over 60% currently to corruption. And I hope I'll speak about it. And if you let it go, as you appear to be suggesting, we should sleep, we should let the government, having been, taken the reins, to continue, I can tell you there will be nothing for you.
Okay.
That is where we are. And so my baseline is that there is always opportunity for government to do what they are doing. But there is also opportunity for good citizens, whether in the opposition or anywhere else, to insist that the right things be done. And I can tell you we are not moving well.
Thank you. We'll talk about that 2 billion Kenya shillings you have mentioned, amounting to 720 billion Kenya shillings a year. And Senator
it is over that now.
Okay, Senator Mutinda, Honorable Mbuyi, and Honorable Kenan, I'll come back to you after the break. We have an hour to also further look at some of the other issues that have been listed by both the government and the opposition, tailored towards addressing the needs of the Kenyan public, who are the taxpayers, and whether that will come to fruition will be subject to observation as the talks kickstart tomorrow on Wednesday. More after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.